Welcome back to our parsha classes. This is Parshas Balak. And so let's set the stage. Last week's parsha we talked about the destruction of the Sichon and Og. Sichon and Og were like the gatekeepers to the kingdom. These were the ones who were the territorial, they had the territories on the border, and they were the ones who were the biggest and strongest, and they were the ones who were going to protect all the other people within the lands of Canaan, all the other nations who paid them tribute to stay there and to be the gatekeepers. And they were the ones to protect the rest of the Canaanite kingdoms. They obviously failed miserably. God was with us, and we conquered them right off the bat. That's when Moses came in and with the rest of the community and wiped out Sichon and Og. And this, of course, distressed all of the smaller kingdoms within Canaan, in particularly Balak. Balak is the one that the parsha is named for, and Balak is the one who immediately panicked and went to his arch enemy, and for the purpose of my enemy's enemy is my friend, or something like that. So he went off to Bilam, and he said, "You are a prophet. You have the power to curse. I cannot beat them on my own. I only stand a chance if you curse them. Come and curse them." And he offered him wealth and all kinds of things to be able to do so. But Bilam was anxious to do so. Let's talk about Bilam for a second. Who is this guy? So Bilam is a prophet who the Talmud compares on par with Moshe. That in prophecy, in wisdom, he was on par with Moses. And the purpose for that is that God is preventing that there should become a situation where the nations of the world might turn around and say, well, you had Moses. If we had Moses, if we had someone like Moses, we could have done, So in order to prevent that, God has provided Bilam as a prophet comparable to the stature of Moses, and who understood all of the God's workings and things. And yet, Bilam was a rasha, a wicked man. He followed his passions, and he was not restrained. Did not have the loyalty to the service of God. That is what Moses had. Moses was absolutely dedicated to God and dedicated to the Jewish people. And if there was a conflict between the two, he's dedicated to the Jewish people because that's what God really wants. But that's that dedication, that commitment. Bilam is a man of his own. He's out for himself and whatever feels good. And we see that in some of the other things that he does as well. So Balak, when he's terrified, Sichon and Og have been destroyed. So now he calls on Bilam to come and curse the Jewish people. Bilam is anxious to help. He is loved to do this. He wants to do this. In fact, he's more anxious than Balak himself. And it's interesting because the verses say that Balak got up early in the morning and he saddled his donkey in order to run, to do this. He passed by all propriety. A man of his stature would not be saddling his own donkey. But he, in order to come and do this, he was anxious to come and do this. And our sages, Rashi particularly points out in the commentaries that God's response is, "You wicked, wicked person. The Jews already beat you to this. Abraham, their father, when given the opportunity to serve God, including to kill his own son, he got up early in the morning and he saddled his own donkey." Again, the same level of commitment. But Avram was committed to God, and Bilam was committed to do whatever he wants, including to go and curse the Jewish people. And God told him in his prophecy, in his dream then, you shouldn't go. But Bilam persists. He wants to go. It's for his own benefit to go. And God says, listen, you can go if you want to go, but you're not going to be able to say anything I don't tell you. So Bilam, with the hope that he might be able to change God's mind, so to speak, he goes on this mission to the opportunity to curse the Jewish people. So in the end, he's actually forced to bless us. And that's an interesting part of this one, is that when he comes out, the first time he makes his sacrifices to his idols, and then God puts the words in his mouth and he blesses us. Balak, of course, gets infuriated, and they try again the next day, building more sacrifices and more altars and more sacrifices. And again, he blesses the Jewish people. And in fact, the Ma Toiv V'Oy Halacha Yaakov Mishkan Asacha Yisrael prayer the prayer that we say in the morning prayers that praises God and the praises the Jewish people. This is from Bilam. This is the curse. This is when Bilam tries to curse us. This is the blessing that he gives to us, and he even talks about he goes into his parables and he talks about the coming of the Messiah, the coming of Mashiach, and the end of days. He talks about the prophecy of King David, and he talks about the prophecy of Mashiach coming, and all of these are from Bilam, and this was his attempt to curse. The question we want to ask is why the name Balak for the name of the parsha? He's a wicked man. He wants to kill the Jewish people. He pays to have someone come and curse the Jewish people. How can we name a parsha after him? So let's reflect back. Previously, we had a parsha named Yisro. Yisro was the chief of all idolaters. He's the one who experimented with all the different idols. He was the known master of idolatry. And a parsha is named after him, Parshas Yisro. In fact, it's the parsha that we talk about the 10 Commandments being given. And it's named to be Yisro from this pagan, right? The purpose there was that the mission is of the world, the mission of the world, the mission of the Jewish people is to create a dirba tachtainim, a dwelling place for God down here in the most physical, crass world, and to reveal the godliness here in the crass world. To do that, certain things have to happen. The first of that steps is that the Jewish people have to receive the Torah, and Yisro, the king of all the prophets, the chief of all the prophets, is the one who's Maida. He's the first to admit this is God. And who better to know? He's tried everything, right? And so when Yisro comes out and he states that this is God, this is the real thing, and it comes from a guy who's a known chief of idolatries, that helps to create a dwelling place for God down here in the physical world, where God is manifest even by the person who knows about all the other idols. And he says, this is God. This is the real thing. That's in Parshas Yisro. Now we're going to take it further. In Parshas Balak, Balak is the one who hates the Jewish people, who wants to bring Bilam out to come and curse the Jewish people. And he's doing everything he can to destroy the Jewish people. And all of his efforts, what do they amount to? They amount to a blessing from Bilam. And this again is towards that end of creating a dir b'tachtainim, a dwelling place for God down here in the physical world, revealing godliness in the most mundane and crude of things. And not only is Balak the one who causes the blessings to come out that talk about King David and talk about King Mashiach, but if we'll look closely at the lineage, the heritage, Bilam, at the end of this parsha, when he's failed at cursing the Jewish people, he goes back to Balak and he says to Balak, the only way we can bring them down is when you get them to sin. Then God can be angry at them and then something bad can happen. But you have to get them to sin. Send your daughters, including the princess, send your daughters to go entice the Jewish men into sin. And that way they can fall. And they do. Balak sends out not only his daughter, the princess, but others' daughters of his people. And they go out to entice the Jewish men into sin. And they succeed. And God brings a curse down upon, a plague down upon the men involved. And thousands die. And it's terrible. In that situation, the progeny from impregnation from that period goes down through the line till Rus, who then becomes the great-grandmother of King David, who was the direct heir to the kingdom of Mashiach, because Mashiach will come from the house of King David, who comes from the house of Rus, who comes from a direct line to Balak. Yes, Balak, whom the parsha is named after, is a progenitor of Mashiach himself. And that is a prime example of the lowest of the low, helping to elevate the physical world, the coarse, crude world, to the revelation of God down here in the most physical, mundane. And may we be blessed to see that Mashiach in our days. Have a great week.